Hey, welcome to the Gorilla Mafia podcast. This is our inaugural podcast. I'm Brian Pinamonti, and I'm joined today by my good friend Jim Clennon. Jim and I go way back to Pittsburgh State University, where we played football for the Pittsburgh State Gorillas. And we hope to accomplish with this podcast connecting some of our fellow teammates and friends, talking about life, successes, failures, things that we've done for the past 30 plus years as adults following our college. I brought Jim on today because Jim and I have been keeping in contact quite a bit. And Jim has a wonderful story about him moving from Oklahoma, getting out of the rat race and moving out to Colorado, where Colorado is one of his favorite passions and places to live on this. And I'm going to introduce Jim right now. Jim, how's everything going in Avon, Colorado today?
Going really well. Beautiful day. What they call locals call a bluebird day, blue skies, and I should be out on the slopes. But when you have a good friend like yourself, you commit yourself to a inaugural endeavor like this. How can you miss?
That's right. Well, Jim, one of the things that always intrigues me about my friends that are successful, that stay in shape, is some of the things that you do on a daily basis to maintain your health. Because, one of the biggest things that we have in life is our health. And as we get older, sometimes our health fails a little bit. And you've been very successful at keeping yourself in shape. I mean, you've done triathlons. Now you're living in Avon, Colorado, where you really over the last few years have kind of taken a different approach to life when we're so connected with technology. We always got our phone with us, and we'd rather leave our wallet and our car keys somewhere than our phone. And over the last couple of years, you've really kind of stepped back when you're not at work, with your career. You've really disconnected and really embraced a healthy lifestyle. And I think that is amazing when all of us are so caught up in the rat race and the grind. We all just go to work, come home, and then we veg out and we doom scroll, or we sit around and we watch Netflix all day long. Your approach has been different over the last 3 years. Kind of explain, what brought you to Avon, Colorado from Oklahoma, living in the Midwest, which, we have exercises, we can get out and bike and hike and do that. But the scenery obviously is not like it is in Colorado.
Yeah.
And the motivation is a little bit different when you're living in the Midwest versus in Colorado. So kind of paint a picture of when you were in Oklahoma and kind of how that motivated you to move out to Avon and kind of almost reinvent yourself and get away from the technology so much and put more of an emphasis on a healthy lifestyle and being fit.
Thanks, Brian. I greatly appreciate the questions and the introduction and teeing this up. So things happen by mistake, and I think that generally creates a little bit of fear, and then the mode of survival and the new beginnings or getting out of your comfort zone. So, my experience, and I think you identified or you set that up pretty well as far as, I was in Oklahoma and running the typical projects, construction projects that we had for the organization that I worked for. And to your point, typical Midwest, that's born and raised there. You and I met at Pittsburgh State, played sports there, and just bonded into a great friendship. And we've been very fortunate to continue that forward. And as you spoke, we hope that this is this podcast is a springboard for that. So can't compliment you high enough for that, and for you just being aggressive in the communication and, hey, let's get this thing going. So here we are, right? But growing up in the Midwest, you get out of college and you're out of athletics and you think, I want to continue, or you just totally burn out. And what happened to me was I wanted to continue it a little bit. So my motivation and my drive was sticking with running. I actually would run with a neighbor, in the evenings when I got off work. And I thought, God, what the hell am I running for? And had another neighbor that introduced me to, why don't you run a half marathon? So then that baseline objective was, okay, go run a half. And then I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing. But, through the years, done a few triathlons and swim events, but still I was just in that normal grind. And at the heart of everything, I always had an interest to get out to Colorado. Ever since college and traveled out here several times, both for work and pleasure and fun, with family, without family, and events and things of that nature. So I was very, very, very fortunate in that regard. So I studied in Oklahoma, still just kind of going through that mid grind. Hit about your middle age crisis type thing, and I thought, man, what can I do? And there was an event. I always reward myself, on my birthday with, well, I think I'll travel somewhere, go somewhere. And they have a
Yeah, and that's awesome to be able to do that.
yeah, thanks. And if I get to rambling, just let me know. But had
No, I love it.
the GoPro games in Vail, Colorado, and so I signed up for that. Came out and drove out from Oklahoma and participated in a couple events that just absolutely.
So what exactly for everybody that so that we don't really know what the GoPro Games
Oh, okay.
events are? What are some of the things that you can sign up for and do just as a participant or even an observer if you wanted to go out and just watch them?
Yeah, it's an amazing event. A little bit of history there. I can't delve into that too much, but it was originated as the Tiva Games, and then it's evolved, and GoPro put their name on it. So there's paddleboard, there's kayaking, running, biking. Just those are kind of their base events. It's just a nice festival over a 4 or 5 day weekend. They have concerts in the evening, and you can watch these incredible, amazing athletes perform. And I'm coming from the Midwest thinking, well, I can hang in there. I've done Ironmans and I've done several events and things and swimming. And I did a bike event and I just white knuckled it up and down the hill. And this 12-year-old kid rides by me and go, in the scent of a bike race. And he's like, hang in there, buddy. You're doing good. And he just blows past me. I'm like, holy shit. And so, that's humbling. And I think, how can I elevate myself or what can I do different? And so I've just been very fortunate and blessed that I had the opportunity in the point in my life where my children were grown and raised, had the youngest in college, to really do a delve and rethink where I want to be and what I want to do. So it was after those games, driving home, I just thought, man, there's a bigger challenge ahead of me that I should
Sure.
endeavor, and that's kind of where I was at that moment. But and then
So that was 3 years ago, and you were on your way back to Oklahoma, thinking, "Man, how do I get out here and make a move
yeah,
and almost reinvent myself, if you will, and replant myself in Colorado?"
absolutely. So got back, and of course, career, and you always have to have some type of source of income, and I'm just average Joe that works. I'm very fortunate to have a good career and networked with people pretty well. So had an opportunity that presented itself in Vail. And I thought, gosh, I'll make a call. And so I did that, and it took a little bit of time and finally transitioned and got out here, which was very, very hard to do. There were some things behind that it's emotional and challenging.
Sure.
Aside from the health aspects. But got out here, landed, had a job, and started to live, in the town of Avon. And so I start working out, doing a lot of multiple things, and just to keep healthy, eat healthy, and try to elevate, where I was from to even improving myself even much more. And so I think I'm doing pretty good. I think I was doing pretty well. Average Joe, just working and living where I wanted to live, and good communications with my kids and my family. And they think, well, hey, great, you're finally landed where you wanted to land. So I was very, very, very thankful for that. And then you don't know what you don't know. And another pivotal moment hits me. I'm reading through the paper, and this guy posted in the paper, cabin for rent. I'm like, what? What's that entail? And so a little bit of adventure. I think I get that from my mom.
So digress a little bit. You hadn't moved in anywhere. You were basically living in corporate housing out
Yeah.
there through the company you're working for. So you're kind of trying to figure out, do you want to go back to living like you normally do, neighborhoods, whatever out there, and then this cabin shows up and you just like, oh.
Yeah. So I think, all right, I'll go up there. And it was located up in the mountains south of Red Cliff, up in White River National Forest, just right adjacent to it. And so off grid. So I call this guy and meet him up there at this just cabin. And I get there and I'm walking through it. It's a dry cabin, no electric, no running water. The only thing you have is a wood burning stove, and you had propane. He had hooked propane up to it so you could run your heat to it. But it was just a little stove, but you had a wood burning stove. So I'm thinking about it, and I thought, that's kind of interesting. I thought, I need to consult with somebody. So I grabbed one of my local buddies working with. I said, hey, let's run up here next weekend. We'll look at it. So we do that, and we're walking through there, and which is like 400 square foot. So I mean, you look inside the window and you see the whole thing, right? But so we look at it, and he's like, looks at me. I said, well, what do you think? I've never done this. And I said, what do you think? And he looks at me. He said, there's no effing way I would do this. And I knew right then, I'm in. I'm doing it.
Yeah. Challenge accepted.
Yeah. So signed a lease with this guy that owned it, and on some good property, and like I said, overlooked White River National Forest, and you could look down valleys to the river, but you're out there in nature. It's quiet, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Thankfully, might not have done it, but I don't regret it 1 second that I lived up there. But you had to prepare.
Now, this elevation was over 9,000 feet.
Yeah, I was right at 9,000 feet, and it was very beautiful, very quiet, very serene. So there, as you said, to try to disconnect from the technology and the rat race, and so I thought I was doing that originally when I moved out here, that I would have that, but holy cow, it just springboarded into this next unknowing journey that would really make me think of, what are we here for? What are we doing? Like what matters to me and what matters to society?
Right.
Not looking through Google or looking through Instagram or anything that's telling me what matters to me. It's me discerning what matters to me, because I have nobody. I have the moose, the bear, the elk, and the coyotes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you have at night. And it's funny because I'm not an outdoorsman. So I would go to work. You'd hear noises at night or things.
You don't even have a gun. You don't even own a gun, do you?
No, and I didn't want them. I'm like, I'm out here in nature. Whatever happens is going to happen. And that's 100% how I felt. I'd go to, you see in the snow prints, and I was out there, for 9 months through the winter season in 2023. But or 22, sorry, my apologies, 2022. And so I would go to work. I was just laughing at myself. I would go to work, and a guy like you's hunter, your brothers hunt and just avid outdoorsman. I'd go into work the next day and I'd ask one of the guys I work with, hey, what's this print? It kind of looks like this. It's about as big as my hand. He'd be like, well, that's a bear. I'm like, okay. And I'm just like, I'm oblivious to what's looking at me. And then I go in one day, he's like,
what's tracking
he's
you?
like, well, that's a cougar. He goes, I'm like, well, I see one. He goes, no, you'd be dead before you even know I hit you. But it was fun, but it made me, before I moved in, it made me prepare. Like, okay, I need firewood. So I really became even more active. I would hike. I'd park my car at the highway, and I would hike down to the cabin about 1,000 yards. And
so you had to walk to your cabin in the winter, basically from November to April.
Yeah,
correct?
The roads got snowed in, the snow, and so I would walk down there and walk back, and but I always had to light my fire to turn to get the heat going in the cabin. It would take about 45 minutes to an hour to get that cabin heated up, with the fire and stoking, and you would just ask people. You'd say, well, my fire burned out in an hour, and I fell asleep and felt like I was a popsicle. So you would just ask some of the locals, and it was a lot of fun. But it was good. I mean, there's a lot of interesting experiences by living there, and just it teaches you to prepare and not be scared of mistakes, and not be scared to reach out to people and communicate with others, when you have those opportunities, but then you can go isolate yourself and work on certain things. So whether it's, building the fire or journaling or going for a hike out into the woods and, going up to Holy Cross. And that's, I was on Homestead and I would hike out to down the road that would take you to Holy Cross. And it was just epic. You hear noises in the middle of the night as you're hiking. You get back 2, 3 in the morning, kind of get a little bit lost in the wilderness. And then
So you'd hike at all
yeah,
hours.
I would just go because it was like I could either sit here, feel sorry for myself, or wait for this cabin to get warm, or I can let this thing burn for an hour to heat up the cabin. What am I going to do now? So, which is kind of funny. There was a bar, a pull-up bar, so I'd light my fire and get that going, and I'd sit in there to let it turn and burn. I'd do some sit-ups, push-ups, and pull-ups, and planks, things of that nature. But then I'd think, well, I can sit here for 2, 3 more hours. I can go for a hike. So I had a little hatchet, and I'd take that with me. Or I'd take my axe, and I'm sure the animals, if they could talk, they'd say, "Oh my God, what's this city boy doing out here?" But it just let you think. You would think, "Oh my gosh," and you would I mean, almost everything was amazing to me that I observed and witnessed and saw. But, there were nights, Brian, where it would be a full moon and I didn't need any light at all. It was just pitch black, but
Yeah.
that full moon was my flashlight. And I would just walk down the road and I'd walk back and, get worn out so that I could just pass out and go to sleep and not have to think. But it was,
Well, that's the thing that we take for granted. We have so much light
mhm,
pollution in the cities and
yeah,
where we live, in society. But when you're at 9,000 feet and you have no electricity, the moonlight and the stars in the sky take on a whole different complexion for you when you're looking outside. You're, looking outside when you're out hiking. Something we really, us flatlanders, since we're in Kansas, you know, can't really appreciate unless you're out in the woods hunting and doing things like that. But up at elevation, which I love Colorado, I come out and see you
absolutely.
as
Yeah.
often as
And
I
you just
can.
kill me when you ski with
But
me because you're a freaking awesome skier.
well, I don't know about that. We'll have to talk about your skins at
Yeah.
some time
That's
and how you
different, right?
skin up the mountain at 5 a.m. to go down before the
Yeah.
lifts open. That's amazing to
Never.
me. But we take for granted the outdoors because most of us are living in the normal rat race of society that I like to call it, and we don't really appreciate the finer things of how bright a moonlit night can be and how much it can light your way if you're out
Absolutely.
hiking. The nature. I mean, the animals are out in it all the time, and we have to be comfortable. If we're too hot, we turn the air
Yeah.
conditioner lower. If we're too cold, we turn the heater up higher. If we don't want to be uncomfortable. And I think when I've talked to you over the last few years about being out there, uncomfortable was something you were on a daily basis, whether it was having to walk back in a snowstorm to the cabin or, where it's pouring down raining, you know, taking around an hour to heat up your cabin. And I mean, I remember last year when I was out there, you were saying, the warmest that cabin would get in the winter was about
Yeah.
55 degrees. Was
Yeah.
that
I think
correct? Is
that's
that
about right.
so? You
And I
really
enjoyed. I did have
55
a
degree.
thermostat that I would utilize, and I would just take a picture of that. One of those atomic clock,
Yeah,
and it has the. So I did have a.
sure.
Yeah,
Battery
it was
operated.
battery operated. So what I would do is because I enjoyed it. I'm like, oh my god, I slept through the night, and that felt really good. And so I'd take a picture of what it was inside temp versus outside temp, and so it just became fun to track and then monitor and manage what my temperatures. What's the lowest temperature I can sleep at, and that
And what was
I would
that?
have to look. I can't remember. I mean, I would wake up and it'd be like maybe negative 21, but that was only a few times. I think the coldest I could sleep at 45 to 50, and I would be okay. 30s, the 30s were tough, especially if you had to get up and pee in the middle of the night. But that was
Yeah, because you had an outhouse
it was too far. Yeah, you
away from the
open the
cabin.
door and walk out a few feet and hope you didn't get attacked. But it was great times. But I want to touch on something you said, and I don't think from your health and just getting out in um, the wilderness, it doesn't matter where you live. You've hunted and have sat in huts and blinds many of time. And I think regardless of where you live in the world, you have that opportunity to just try to find something on the map to go escape to. Maybe that's a public land, or maybe it's a private land. And if it is, ask someone, hey, can I have access? And go get away. I mean,
Absolutely.
there's so many trees. Go cut down a tree and work on that and enjoy that physicality of chopping wood. And those are some of the things that I enjoyed. Granted, I got a chainsaw, but I would chop wood with an axe and just to challenge myself. I get
Yeah.
some blisters, but who cares? And I would just laugh. I mean, there were times you're by yourself. There were times where I'd walk. I was chopping wood one day and walking back and just face planted into the snow. And it's like, and you're by yourself and you just start laughing. You're embracing
Yeah.
the nature and you're embracing what your challenge is.
Yeah.
Um, Amazing. You'd have,
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings is an old military expression called "embrace
yeah,
the suck." You just got to embrace the suck, I guess, and you were doing that on a daily basis, which I commend you for because I think that's just it speaks volumes of your personality and your ability to persevere and just your toughness in general, because most people can't be without certain amenities of society that make us comfortable because we don't
yeah,
want to be uncomfortable. We're so spoiled, and if our phone dies, we're dead. We're dead in the water because we can't keep up with what's going on, and you really don't need to keep up with what's going
yeah.
on. You need to focus on yourself and make yourself a better person. You mentioned earlier journaling. Were you a big journaler before you moved out to Colorado? Is that something you always done, or is that something that you started doing when you got into the cabin? Because I like
Yeah,
to journal, and I struggle between a digital journal or a paper journal, and I always seem to find myself going back to a
I agree.
paper journal versus a digital journal because I noticed that the things that I put in my digital journal, I was trying to play with that. I never look back at that because it just gets lost, kind of like photos. I got 10,000 photos on my phone, but I never really go through them as much as I would rather look through a photo album and see the pictures on my wall of my kids and of experiences that I've had. And I think that we all have to tell a story somehow. And your journaling experience, I mean, did you journal before you were out there? And is it something you started when you were in the cabin? And is it something you've continued to do to this day?
So, at an early age, when I got out into my career, my dad said, the first thing you should do on whatever, December 1st or January 2nd, go out and buy yourself a notebook for the calendar year, right? And so that's kind of where that started a little bit from a business standpoint. Um, I've kept notes of my travels and my journeys and people that I've met, just those instances and occurrences and things that I've enjoyed, things that I've been challenged with, goals and objectives. And so tracking some of those. And I've never really truly journal like, here was my day and write, just a full narration of everything. But through my athletics, as far as the racing and the triathlons and the running events, right? Just kind of your common Joe running events. Um, I would track that stuff. So I track, what my workout day was, what my PR was, or whatever. Well, this is really interesting. I guess to answer your question on the short, I really wasn't a journaler. I was more of a, hey, what happened that day, or a little bit of a highlighter. But I didn't really write too many notes until I got up into the cabin and was just bored to hell. I would write things, what I thought, what I felt. It was for me. It was kind of a tough transition from Oklahoma to come to Colorado because just emotionally it was tough. But I knew that it was something that I had to do. Um, so I'm very thankful for that. But as I was packing some of my things, and I went back, in Oklahoma, as I was packing my things, I ran across a old book that was my calendar book. And Brian, I can't remember the exact number of years. But I moved because I lived in Colorado for a little short time, and then went back to Kansas and for family reasons and just good opportunity business wise. I moved the same day back to Colorado that I had, I think, probably 10, 20 years ago when I'd first moved out, if that makes
Oh,
sense. Yeah, I
that's
thought,
awesome.
so you think, you know, when you journal, when you look back at some of those things, you're like, holy cow, it's just reassuring. Like, man, maybe I'm on the right path. Maybe I am supposed to be here. And I don't know if people
Yeah.
are spiritual or not, or if they, pray to a tree or
Well, we hope
whatever.
they are.
Agree. I mean, there's some kind of something out there, right? But and I believe in what I believe, and I'll respect everybody else's. But yeah, it was just amazing. So I felt like that's a strong value to journal, whether it's 5 words, 1 word, or it's a date that you went on, or it was you and I went and skied. I wrote that down in my notebook, and I'll look back at that. So yeah. Anyway, but I think there's some importance
Absolutely.
there. Um, but yeah, there's some notes and things.
Yeah, I find as the older I get, the more I want to journal just to get things off my chest, also
Yeah,
think things through. Life's full of ups and downs and stressors, but you also want to live the good with the
absolutely,
bad experiences, because nothing. You're not always going a straight trajectory upward. There's always blips in the
absolutely,
radar along the way, but it's the relationships, it's the challenges, it's all those things that make us persevere. You know, that's why, as when we were growing up, I think you and I and everybody that we played with, athletics is a wonderful springboard
absolutely.
for life, because you're not always going to have success. You're going to have failures along the way. You're going to have injuries along the way. You're going to win games. You're going to lose games. But I think the biggest thing is developing those relationships with people and working together to overcome obstacles. And I think, that's one thing that, you did in Colorado when you're living off the grid, is overcome a lot of obstacles and things that, you know, were challenging, and you had to persevere because you had to rely only on yourself. You didn't have a
Yeah,
team out
100%.
there with you, when you're in the cabin. And I think that's speaks volumes to the courage and the self-sufficiency that you had to
And I
learn
was
and endure, I
responsible
guess.
to go to work every day, so I still had my eight to five responsibilities. And there were times where I would
Sure.
bring my laptop home, and I had the opportunity to just off the battery charge. I would work and catch up on email, or I would tee up my next day. But I did not have the distraction of emails coming in or able to get online and look on the internet while I was surfing. So I had 100% focus on what I was doing on each task. And Brian, you mentioned as far as on my own, but yet I was not on my own, because I have, as you stated, we have a good group of friends, and we have people we can reach out to. And the one thing I want to touch on is, about the point you feel like you're isolated or you are on your own. You as an individual have to reach out to other people and engage yourself, and regardless of what you think of them or they
Right.
think of you. It's good to hear good voices. It's good to hear friendships. It's good to hear strangers' voices. Hey, how are you? It's one of the
Yeah.
things I truly enjoy is going to the coffee shop in the mornings and just saying hi to the baristas. And they ask me, how are you doing? I say, I'm amazing. I'm doing great. And I think that's more surprising to people, because I don't know what the percentage would be, but most of the time when you say, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm hanging in there. How are you doing? Just getting by. And it's like bullshit. You have to be your own cheerleader, get out of bed and say, I'm conquering the world today. And I'm going to make as many mistakes as there are out there that have ever occurred. Who's measuring me? Me. Yeah. And it's
Yeah. Yeah.
just embracing and the communications with your friends, and having those relationships, and whether it's a stranger or people from our college days or high school days, I feel like that's very, very important to the mental health that we have. And
Oh, absolutely. Even though we have this wonderful technology and the social media aspect of life, I think that isolates more people,
yeah,
because they're not actually reaching out and communicating, or going out of their way to get in touch with somebody when they might be in town, or where they might they might be passing through a city that one of our old friends lives in. Maybe it's just for a couple of days, but even if you're there, you can at least reach out and say hi. Let's grab lunch if you got a second. If not, just say hi. But I think we get more isolated, even though they call it social media. Uh, I think we need to do better at reaching out to people, getting connected with them, and even if the time doesn't work out for both parties, at least knowing you can always reach out to somebody uh,
And it's
and stay
learning,
in touch. And there's
excellently
really no
stated, it's
reason we
learning
shouldn't.
people's stories. And you, as a strong leader, and us talking back and forth, and I'm absolutely here to support and communicate with you on this podcast. Um, let's reach out to everybody. Everybody has a story. Everybody has something to share, and we can learn from our friends or our strangers' journeys and mistakes and successes as well, and realize, well, we all are on this big global planet and have the
Yeah.
same problems, challenges, and some of the same successes as well. But it's, as you said, it's not isolating or separating yourself from any other groups or people. It's engaging, not just through social media, which I kind of laugh because it's a podcast, but call them,
Yeah.
have this one-on-one dialogue, and don't get stuck on Instagram or any of those other. That's the only thing I'm on is Insta because of my kids, and I like to see what they post. But then you start to get categorized, and that's where this media, they start to push you into certain sectors. And I know everybody knows that, but simple. You look up whatever some brand or product, and you're going to get 1,000 pings on that product, and that's not the path you want to go down, and be reliant upon all that marketing dictation that gets thrown into your face. But it's hard.
When you were living in the cabin, what would you say was the toughest challenge that you had to embrace during your time off grid, uh, when you weren't, in the office, when you're back at the cabin? What would you say the toughest challenge? And I would assume that you probably had different challenges at the different types of the seasons. I mean, I'm sure winter had its tough challenges because you couldn't get up there besides walking. And I'm sure summer had some tough challenges as well. What would you say the overall toughest challenge you had was, you know, living in that cabin? What would that be?
That's an excellent question. I don't think I've ever really reflected back on that. I would say at first, um, well, I'll go back to a story. So there was probably in the first month, I drove up there and I park on the highway, and I had been in a little bit of a routine of, get out of my car, walk down, and go build my fire and get things going. And it was, I get up there, and I just started to become depressed. And because it was a little bit mundane of the same type of routine. So the excitement, the sexiness was gone, right? I'm like, well, I'm screwed, right? I'm up here for a while.
Right.
But I didn't want to give up. That I could quit now and go back. But some of the people that I'd spoke with, some workers, I felt like they had some money on me on how long I would last. Well, little did they know, right, Brian? Because both you and I, you embrace the suck, you embrace the challenges. So, that one time I got up there and I slept in my car till probably 2 in the morning. And then I just went on back into work. And I would work out every morning. I was fortunate, the no running water comment, right? I was fortunate enough to join a local gym. And so I'd go work out in the morning and shower and clean up and all that. So my hygiene was fine. I'm sure people are like, well, God, what'd you do when X, Y, Z, right? But my hygiene was fine. I was totally fine. But man, I promised myself, once you pull in or pull off the highway and park, get your ass out of the car and keep moving, keep moving. So that I
Move.
feel that was my first obstacle. That was my biggest challenge. And then the second was just utilizing my time. And as you mentioned, journaling, what am I going to do with my time? How am I going to fulfill my time? Because I could get up there 6, 7 o'clock, 8 at night after work. And, you have maybe 3 or 4 more hours to do something. So that's where a little bit of the fear, not knowing what animals were and, who's out there, what's out there type thing. And So I would just go on a hike. I'd grab my hatchet and go on a hike. And, there were a few times where I'd dress light to see how cold I could get on a hike or a walk, and then, work my way back. But I'd say probably the temperatures and just embracing my time management, how I was utilizing my time with what we're given, on the earth and in the environment. But yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think I've ever
Oh,
really reflected 100% on that. I just knew, man, keep moving forward. Absolutely.
get moving. I love that because one of my favorite mottos is movement's life. Because if we're not moving, we're dying. And being a physical therapist, I see the
Mhm.
effects of sedentary lifestyles, and sedentary lifestyles is and sedentary jobs. They're basically killing us
Yes.
slowly from the inside, which is one of the reasons we need to exercise, and one of the reasons that I look up to you so much and respect how active you are and the challenges that you put yourself through, because it's really easy to come home from a hard day of work and sit in front of television and do the same stuff over and over and over again, and then realize, well, you've never improved your health, or you've never improved your psyche or your mental capability. Because ever since COVID, I think we've got a lot of challenges mentally and physically, because people have slowed down, and we've got to get people back out. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love going out to Colorado. It's probably my favorite place on earth, and I wish I could live out there like you do someday. And maybe we'll try to
Yeah.
figure that out sometime in our life. But that to me, because you're always moving out there, you're not sedentary. And I notice when I come out there a lot, there's hardly any television watching, there's hardly any playing on the phone stuff. It's always staying active, whether it's skiing or hiking or biking. And we love coming out there because it's a getaway from the reality of life, and you can just kind of be active the whole time. And I feel so much better health wise, because for some reason, it's not that we eat unhealthy, but there's so many unhealthy choices, to grab a quick drive through, grab a quick pizza for delivery, or what have you. Out there, to me, and it may just be all my mental thought process. It's like you want to be healthier because there's more activities to do. You don't want to sit around and grab a pizza, and you want to eat more healthy because you want to do the things that are active. And you find yourself biking more, or hiking and skiing. And just last weekend when I was out there with you, I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
we skied like crazy, and it was the best snow that I think I've been out there in a few years.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to come home. I mean, we got that 23 inches that, a day and a half, 23 inches in a day and a half. And that Saturday that we're hammering it out, my legs were just on fire. And I was like, oh my God, why do I have to go back to,
Yeah.
the rat race on Monday and drive home on Sunday? And I remember you saying, I just hope you guys get snowed in out here where you just can't get home for a week. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
I'd have a lot
Exactly.
of people all upset with me if I get
Yeah.
snowed in out here. That's for sure. But man, it's just so wonderful to be as active out there as you can. And I know the GoPro games had a kind of an impact on you, but most people aren't going out and doing those types of vacations like you. And that's a testament. They're going, you want to go relax something, and you're taking yourself on vacations
Absolutely.
to challenge yourself. And I'm going to digress, because we'll kind of throw your last vacation this last summer.
Yeah. I
You're
knew you were going
running
to
with the
bring that
bulls in
up.
Spain. Um,
Thanks for the
I had to bring that
surprise.
up because it's one of it's yeah, surprise that question. But you know most people are going to relax and vacation places, and sit on a beach or go do things, and your types of vacations and trips are always, or seem to always be, very, very
Yeah.
active and bucket list type items. And talk about, give us a brief synopsis of your running with the bulls experience, and kind of share that trip with you, because I love hearing the story, and I'll listen to it a hundred times, because it's an amazing story, first of all, but it's also comical, because
Yeah.
you don't know what you know till you get there. And no matter how much you research it, you're always going to learn something different. So kind of take us on your
Absolutely.
running
Well,
with the Bulls last
I'll tee
summer
it up with
and share
this.
that experience.
When my kids were growing up, we would joke and kid around and wrestle, and I would always say to them, "You mess with the bull, you get the horns." So I'll follow up on that here in a little bit. But yeah, so to your point, thanks for bringing this up, and it's something that I truly enjoyed. So this last summer, on my bucket list was to go run with the bulls in Spain, Pamplona, Spain. So I was fortunate enough to, at the time in my life where I had saved a few pennies and thought, well, I'll just go to Europe for the first time and do a little bit of traveling. But so I traveled a little bit, and in July 7, landed in Pamplona, and we had the Running of the Bulls event. So now I'm over there by myself, and which I'm not scared of anything. It's as far as traveling and just doing things and adventurous. So I get that from my mom. But yeah, so you're lined up in this corral, and the streets are real narrow. I'm not sure if anyone knows, but you can look it up. Google Running of the Bulls, Pamplona, Spain. But you're lined in this corral, and I have my phone and driver's license. I'm talking to these guys, and they're like, "Oh, dude, you don't want anything with you." So I ran back to the hotel and dropped. So I walked back to the running, and so I don't have any identification and anything on me, and which was great. But at least I thought it was great. So we're lined up in this corral, and they shoot a cannon, and then about a minute or two later, maybe 30 seconds later, they shoot the second one, and that second cannon signals that the bulls are loose and they're going to run through the streets. So you're standing in a crowd of people, and they start to come, but you really can't see them running, but you just hear them. It's just like a thundering herd, right? And there's 6 large and 6 medium-sized bulls. And so, you start, and you can either start at the beginning, the middle, or the end, right before they run into this stadium. And the objective is to get into the stadium not before the first one, but not after the last one, because they close the gate. So we're running, and you see them run right past me, and I keep running. And, it was very, very crowded, and we land into the stadium. So we get into the stadium, and we're all high-fiving with all these strangers and people, just having a great, great, grand time. And, you say element of surprise or not knowing, and being able to adapt and adjust. This one doesn't end so well, but because I thought I had adjusted. But so they all go back behind the stadium, and I did not know, but they let one of those medium-sized heifers or bulls. I'm not a rancher like you. So they let one of those back out, and then it just starts to chase everybody, and it'll hit people and things of that nature. So they do that 6 times, and the first one was the element of surprise. I thought, oh my gosh, what do I do? I could jump over the wall and be done and go drink beer or whatever and party with everybody. But I thought, no, I'm going to stay in here. I think, okay, the first one, dodge, duck, and dive, to steal a quote from Dodgeball. I think I'm doing okay.
I love
so I get all the way to the 5th bull, and so they let the one run around. The first one runs around for like maybe 20 seconds. They pull him back in, and they let the second, third, fourth, fifth. So I have 2 to go. I'm on the 5th bull, and I saw this guy. He kind of squatted down and took a hit by the bull and kind of wrangled his horns and then jumped back off. And so I see that, and I thought, well, shit, I could do that. And so that 5th bull comes out. He's running around, and this it's like the parting of the sea. And this bull, what in my mind, I thought I was totally squatted down like a lineman, like one of our good friend linemen. Name anybody, right? Like Chris Han or somebody, right? That's just ready to take a blow or give a blow. And this thing just freaking just waylays me. And I think I'm grabbing his horns, and he waylays me, and it flying there and land on my wrist and break my wrist and knocks me out. And that's the only thing I remember. Then, because the next thing, like, I'm on a gurney, and the guy's saying, "Put a neck brace on him," and they take me back, and they're just laughing, probably, "You dumb American." And anyway, so I go hike the Pyrenees for the next week and do some other stuff, and come back and get an X-ray, and had a broken wrist. But the one thing, and I said this earlier, is, you say embrace the suck, and the one thing that happened to me that I thought was very, very valuable, and I'll tie this up with, the relationships and the friendships and reaching out to people or not reaching. Well, my brother reached out to me
Absolutely.
that next day 'cause he hadn't heard from me, and hey, how are you? What's going on? And I told him what happened. I said, I don't know if it's sprained or broke. And he said, what was your plan for today? And I said, well, whatever it was. And he said, forward, move forward. Don't change a thing. Broken leg, whatever, broken wrist, anything. Keep moving forward. Now, I probably took his good sound advice because I was a little bit concussed. So, um, but I did. I kept moving forward and went over, traveled a little bit more. Like I said, hiked the Pyrenees a little bit, and then came back a week later and got an X-ray and surgery. So, but it's embracing, it's communicating,
And
it's
that's
it's
awesome.
talking with people, being fearless, living fearless. Whether you're in shape or not in good shape, you can do it from anywhere and everywhere that you live. As I said, go out in the middle of Nebraska or North Dakota, live out in the middle of nowhere, but just challenge yourself. Like you had said, move forward, do it on your
Keep
birthday, do
moving
it for
forward.
Christmas. But I don't think you wait till those times. I think you're always preparing yourself for the known and or for the unknown. And thankfully, I was in
Yes.
good enough condition that my recovery was successful and a little bit more expedient than maybe someone who is, to your point, sitting on home and spinning through their social media, or not bicycling, or not going out for the walks. I mean, go out for a walk. Who cares? It might prepare you for a loose dog.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I and get out and make connections and stay in touch with people. But the biggest
Absolutely.
takeaway from this is keep moving forward, endure. I don't think as we get older, the only thing we can keep doing is moving forward, and we don't want to stop moving because then that's when bad things happen, and that's when our health gets challenged, and
Yeah.
we've lost some close friends over the years to various illnesses, and that's something as we get older. We need to cherish these friendships and reach out, but keep moving forward. And I think
Well,
this is a
I will
great way
throw
to
this in
wrap
because
it
I
up
forgot, but
with
so because I wanted to close it up the way that I teed it up, and so when I called my daughter and
yeah.
checked in with her, she said, "Well, Dad, it's true. You mess with the bull, you get the horn." So I just thought that was really cute. But yeah, I'll let you wrap this up. Absolutely.
and that's And that's absolutely the best way to wrap it up is keep moving forward. And if you mess with the bull, you get the horns. And one of the sayings that we have as the gorillas is, once a gorilla, always a gorilla. And Jim, I've enjoyed this hour long with you visiting,
Yeah,
catching up. Even though we just saw each other last week, uh, we're gonna keep in touch, and we're gonna try to get this Gorilla Mafia podcast going and get a hold of some of our other friends and tie them into this and kind of
absolutely.
see what's keeping them moving forward. How do we do that? And if we can tie people in and bring people in to this podcast, if it's nothing just for our own teammates and friends, but hopefully other people can get some benefit out of these visits and keep moving
Absolutely,
forward
Brian. Thank
themselves.
you.
And Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday today, especially since it's a Bluebird ski day, and I know how everybody out in Colorado just loves those darn days. You'd rather be on the slope than sitting here in front of your FaceTime camera talking to me, but I appreciate the last hour of visiting, and
Absolutely.
we'll wrap it up here, Jim. Thanks so much. And I'm going to
You
stop
bet.
recording right now,
Gorillas.
and we'll stay on here and visit for a second. Go Rillas.